Our first speaker is going to be Professor Dr. John Endicott from Woosung University in Daejeon. I won't even bother to try to summarize this gentleman and scholar's career. I'm just going to point you towards Eventzilla again, because Gary told me I have to every time I get the chance. You can read all about his very long, very distinguished career in Korea there. John E. Endicott from Woosung University. What do you think is going to happen, sir? Unmute your microphone.
Unmute. Well, thank you very much, Michael, and I'm delighted to be here. I have to warn you, I just got my COVID vaccination today, 6 hours ago, in fact, and it's starting to hurt. So watch out. I don't know what'll happen. Well, I want to say that this is a real pleasure. I've been teaching and running basically Woosung University for now the past 14 years. And I don't really teach English in my career, but I teach in English. And well, we have about 8 colleges here at Woosung and maybe about 11,000 or so students. And what's happening is that we have 4 of the schools that teach in Korean and 4 of them that really teach in English. And we have some fantastic kids. You know, they're learning English as a second language, in some cases as a 4th or 5th. I had a wonderful RA from Uzbekistan who spoke Uzbek, Russian, Turkish, English, and Korean, and won the nationwide test in Korean. Just because he took Korean at Woosung for 4 years while he was with us. I mean, it's amazing kids. So while I don't teach English, I do serve as a living example of Standard American from the heartland of Standard American, Ohio. The university really has a vital role. We introduce and enhance English reading, writing, speaking, and comprehensive English for all our students, we're hoping. But many of our kids enter with only entry-level capabilities. But through our varied English programs, we try to raise them up to at least a functional level, close to 800 as we can. And to help us, of course, we have 115 English professors, English language professors, who reside in our Woosung Language Institute. They hail from 7 different nations. And we have about 120 other international professors who go then all together with another 500 Korean professors to make our faculty a little over 750 or so. If you don't mind, let me explain the university just for a second, and then I'll get to my ideas about the future. First of all, I am 85, and so I don't know what the future is, how long I have to enjoy the future. But the main colleges we really have at Woosung are a railroad college, a digital convergence college, health and human services college, and a hotel and management culinary arts college. All those colleges are taught full-time in Korean. And since actually 2007, when I got here, when we added a new college, Soulbridge International School of Business, we've added Soulbridge, Endicott College of International Studies, and the J.W. Kim College of Future Studies, and a really unique school called Seoul International, which takes the courses that are taught in English and with enough English-speaking professors offers a very specific 4-year degree from those Korean language colleges. So they can get a railroad degree or a digital degree, especially some of the stuff in the culinary arts field. But the core of our English teaching is the general English language department. And all the kids get 2 years really of very sort of a good introduction into English. And we stress English for world citizenship. And that can consist of really English for everyday life, standardized syllabi and exams, CEFR levels A1 and B1, special tutorial classes for students in need, and special classes for Chinese students. We have basically Sorry, did that. We have about 3,000 international students and about another, let's say, 9,000 Korean students. And so we make sure that we're bringing the level of English up. So by the time that the students leave, we hope the first 2 years, they can then take any of the other English courses that we offer throughout the university. We're trying to make the instruction as hands-on as possible. We have, of course, 3 contests that challenge the students in several ways. Spring semester, we have a speech contest now modified for COVID-19 conditions, and prizes, lots of prizes are given for best videos that they make. And we have a submission to what we call the Woo Tube from Woosung University. And both in fall and spring semesters, we have reading contests and prizes are given for the largest number of books read on the Highlights Readings site. And in the fall semester, we have what we call Gelato Magazine, and it's G-E-L-A-T-O, which of course is sort of a nice place. So they all have to write articles. And if those articles are accepted to the magazine, they get extra credit. So basically we have all the semesters featuring writings or written work using a genre approach. All students practice writing emails, Facebook posts, social media, and weather forecasts. Then finally, if you're a culinary arts student, you write menus, restaurant reviews. If you're an IT student, we focus on electronic product reviews and comparisons. And for marketing and business students, we stress flyers, promotional pamphlets, and posters. We have a host of electives that are created for all these students. As part of our extracurricular activities, we also offer Star English, and these are unlimited one-on-one 15-minute chats with our native speaking English professors. We have an English tutorial center for drop-in tutoring and the English corner for drop-ins for extra lessons, and a Star library for leveled books to check out. And if they do a book review, they get extra credit too. So last year we tried to start what we called the ECP program, the Endicott certificate program. And that was ready to go, but I'm afraid it's been held in abeyance really as a result of COVID. In that program, the students are encouraged to do everything they can possibly in English. And when they finish, they get a certificate that supposedly is really valuable. We'll see. Most recently, I bought 100 copies of my memoirs, Destined to Serve, hint, hint. And I gave those to Endicott College. And we're hoping that anybody who gets through the 400 pages will get, some really special extra credit. Well, forgive me for talking so much on what we're doing at Woosung. Now let me turn to the future. You're dealing with a specialist. International field is my real field. And I did not predict the falling of the Berlin Wall, nor the collapse of the Soviet Union. So there's two strikes already. But when I wrote a book on Japanese nuclear option and nuclear weapons for Japan, that was 45 years ago. And it's still very valuable and still holds that Japan will not go nuclear unless America makes a serious policy mistake. That mistake might be that North Korea has nukes now. So we're hoping. However, I'll remind everybody an old Japanese proverb or saying, basically, that says, when we speak of tomorrow, the devil laughs. So I'm going to talk about tomorrow, and I hope it doesn't shake the hell. We can see already tomorrow. Even today, we can see the translator services are already at the end of our arm. They're pretty good already. And the AI of tomorrow will, I'm sure, respond to the future needs and become much more sophisticated. So in that case, what is our future? I think the learning of English is not just for the sake of translations, but it's the door to all the aspects that make teaching English or any foreign language so rich. Cross-cultural benefits, history, awareness of political institutions and the loyalties involved, and an introduction to a total in-depth understanding of societies. To me, that is always so important. Secondly, it leads to a flexibility of the brain to respond to linguistic challenges, but other challenges for the use, integration, and evaluation of the masses of information that are going to bombard us every day and even more so in the future. Language education leads to the discovery of diversity, and as always, diversity can lead to innovation and creativity. In a sense, I see English education as a vaccine for dealing with the masses of uncertainty introduced by the fourth industrial revolution. Ultimately, it provides the educated with an increased degree of flexibility. I tell every graduating student and every class that I hope they will be masters of chaos in this coming ultra-technical world. As a last observation, I'd like to share our experience in introducing debate into our curriculum here at Woosung. In our Solbridge International School of Business, excuse me, that has a pre-COVID enrollment of about 1,600. We introduced debate through the Debate Society and found it changed the lives of not only the students here at Solbridge, but throughout our region. Of course, debate focuses the participants to use the vast amounts of data that they have stored in the process of memorization, which is one of the hallmarks of mastering native languages in Asia. Great skills at memory work serve to build great stores of data in the mind. Debate and the pressures of thinking under fire releases a lot of this information and provides our debaters with a good deal of ready information to make their case. In a sense, Solbridge has gone through Asia like Sherman went through Georgia as far as winning in debate. It's really doing quite well. We've made records in Asian debate circles, but more importantly, it's involved the students of our area in the regional secondary education systems to help introduce debate to entire school systems nearby. This is something I just can't get over. Young, disaffected schoolyard bullies in middle school and high school have been given the opportunity to join debate organizations within the schools, and it's literally changed their lives. They were bullies, all of a sudden they got fixed on something else than what was demanded of the instructor. This was the challenge of debate, and they just blossomed. Well, you can see I'm optimistic for the teaching of English in the future. The human brain may not be programmable as an AI-inspired computer, but that's its strength after all. I think we're in for a fantastic, challenging, but really inspiring future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor.
Forgive me for reading this, because if I don't, at 85, you'd never hear anything. So
It is all good, sir. You can do whatever you want at that age. That's what I'm told, at least. We'll see. We'll see if I make it that far.
well, thanks to the Air Force, I'm a retired colonel, and the Air Force just called me the other day, and anyone over 75 who's retired military in Korea was given the chance to get a COVID shot. And so I got the first shot for Moderna today.
There you go. Well, you get some rest now, relax.
Oh, yes.
We're going to move on, and we're going to hear from Professor Judy Yin. Professor Yin has a wonderful name, not the Yin part, the Judy part. That's my mom's name. John, I'm 2025. I have no idea what you're talking about. Stop talking to me, John. Professor Yin is joining us a little bit late. She's replacing somebody else who had a time commitment problem. So she's coming to us a little bit late, but we're happy to have her. She works at the Korean National University of Education as an associate professor. And if you want to know more about her, you can ask her in the Discord channel, which I'm going to share in a second. Professor Yin, the stage is yours.
All right. This is my first time joining COLTISO, and I'm very happy to meet you guys online. And thank you. Even though I'm a replacement, I'm very happy to be joining you guys today. As Michael had said, I teach at the Korean National University of Education. If you guys are not familiar with that university, it's kind of like a teacher's college. The entire curriculum is based on training pre-service teachers to actually become teachers, right? Anyway, when Michael emailed me about 3 days ago, I think, to join the program to give a talk, I couldn't help but think of that keyword. Before future, before digital, the only thing that came up to my mind was COVID-19 and how that has changed all of our teaching and all of our classroom and just my identity as a teacher. So I think before we talked about digital, right? Future, it was kind of like how would I say, luxury, you know, so kind of like accessory that you can add to your classroom to make it a little bit pretty. But now it has become something that you have to do for safety measures. And I think that really changed our teaching and how students learn. So I think to talk about future, I don't think we can talk about it without considering before and after COVID-19. And this is what I asked my pre-service teachers and also my graduate students who are in-service teachers. I think it's this: before we consider what we need to do online and offline, I think we have to think about what is the core of our teaching. So I think as the keynote speaker had talked about, we really need to consider what makes us human before adapting any digital tools for assistance. And just to talk about what the keynote speaker had said, just to add on to what he had said, I don't think also, I also agree, I don't think digital devices will replace human teachers, just like how calculators didn't make math teachers look for other jobs, right? Just because we have translators doesn't mean that we're going to be out of our jobs. But I think we really need to reflect on who we are as teachers and what we need to do as English teachers. So as I said, before COVID-19, I was a reluctant, digitally reluctant teacher who refused to use iPads and any type of digital device to taint my lovely traditional classroom, where I loved using the board rather than the PowerPoint slides and Prezi. I don't even know how to get that started. But because of COVID-19, I was literally pushed into this box, we're supposed to be teaching outside the box. Now we're pushed into the box, right? And they want us to be creative within these boxed areas we call, online platform. But I was devastated, and I had a hard time sleeping, and I just didn't know what to do because I'm used to doing group work. I'm used to having face-to-face interactions. My how would I say, my charisma exists offline, yeah, but I didn't know how to transfer over that to the online platform, and it just really shook my identity as a teacher because I thought, oh my goodness, I don't know how to teach, and it took me some time to kind of catch up. But now I realized, wow, it kind of made me think about who I am as a teacher, as I said before, and what I need to transfer over to the online platform. So a few things that we need to consider. As I said, we're not doing teaching online for to be digitally, how would I say, trendy. It's safety issues, and these days, you cannot have group work offline, so you have to have group work online. And I'm so happy that I'm not wearing this suffocating mask. I can see your lovely faces. I can see you smiling. I don't have to read your, eye signs, I guess, huh? But even though we have to be online, now we have to think, how can we manage group work online? I don't know. I mean, wasn't that hard for you guys? It was horrible for me. before, when my students would do group work, I was the eavesdropper. I would walk around and right, and I would listen to other students, and I would know what to do next. Now they're in a black box. They're in an area where I can only just see the results. And when I actually go in to listen to what they're saying, yes, eavesdropping, yeah. When I actually go in to see what they're doing, they freeze. I feel like I'm, kind of in the way of their group dynamics. So it was just horrible. But it took me some time, but now I'm realizing this is what I need to do online. And I think that's what all of us need to do, right? And second thing, it's these days, it's so easy to collect students' works because you can record, just like what I'm doing right now. I'm being recorded. And you can accumulate so much data, but what can you do? What can you do beyond the simple accumulation to use that data for diagnostic purposes? And that, again, that's something that we need to consider. So how to blend? We have no choice but to teach offline and online. We have no choice but to adapt blended learning. But it's not just the offline teaching today and online teaching tomorrow. We have to consider how offline and online activities can collaborate optimally and make it into this now new normal classroom. So to close what I've been not babbling, but I've been talking about is this. I saw the polls from the results. I thought that was really interesting. Wow, I learned new things every day. I'm going to use that for my class. Thank you very much for, I'm a little bit more digitally literate now. I see that everyone is optimistic. There were some negative words, but of course I'm also worried, but I'm also optimistic, and I'm very hopeful. But before going into the future, I think we are still the history in the making. I think we need to think about where we were, where we are right now, what are our immediate needs, and we really need to consider before, as I said, adapting. We're adapting to the new future. We're using AI for tools. We need to consider what exact assistance we need from the digital world before adapting anything, robots, AI, whatever that you want, But why do we need to do things online, and why do we need to do that offline? I think we kind of need to consider that before stepping further. So I don't have an answer, but I think I threw lots of questions for you guys to think about while you are listening to these wonderful presentations hosted by Koti. So thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, Professor Yin. As Trinity said in The Matrix, it's the question that drives us. And man, Lindsay is really gonna give me trouble if I got that movie quote wrong. Whew. All right, next up, who is next? Who is next? Who is next? I always pretend like it's gonna be random. It totally isn't. Lisa Hunsberger, all the way from Japan. If you wanna know stuff about Lisa, what is Michael going to say? Go to Eventzilla, look her up, Lisa, Lisa. And she's coming at us from Japan, and she's gonna add her voice to this. So Lisa, without further ado, take it away.
Thanks, Michael. So I've actually written out what I wanted to say. And when Michael first asked me about the future of TESOL, my immediate thought was of the educators. So I went to the past, the educators who made an impact on me and my own foreign language learning experience. So I thought of Miss Moore, my English literature and high school homeroom teacher, who instilled in us the importance of critical thinking and who cared about each of us individually. And Dr. Kennedy at university, who in a sea of over 100 students, somehow always knew and would greet each of us by name. And Mrs. Preston, my university French teacher, who after I very reluctantly chose French as an elective my first year of university and had to take 2-hour French classes for an entire academic year, Monday to Friday, so that's 8 to 10 a.m., Monday to Friday, Mrs. Preston showed up in the class. She sashayed in, bubbly and excited. Bonjour tout le monde. On va prendre français. Il fait beau aujourd'hui, n'est-ce pas? And my heart just melted. So one of the things I often hear in Japan as to the reasons why Japanese persons don't like English is because it's too difficult, or because they had an experience where they had a teacher who was particularly unkind, and so they hated the teacher and therefore hated the subject that the teacher taught. So I think that the personal touch, no matter how small, creating kind learning environments, a really good atmosphere is very important in how we teach our classes and in what we bring to the classroom. Teachers with a passion for their subject or a lack thereof can make a great impact. And teachers who are willing to adapt to the times can offer a lot to their students. During this pandemic, we all worked very hard to make our classes interesting to our students. We became performers, YouTubers, public speakers, game designers, and so on. And for the future of TESOL, I can see where we'll incorporate a lot of what we learned and did during this pandemic in our classes. And we've learned so much, even with persons who also had to do those hybrid classes. I still have no idea how you managed to do the hybrid classes, but that is a wealth of knowledge. And the groups that we created on Facebook and all these different educators from around the world who came together to help each other, that for me is the future of TESOL. On a more personal note, a hope for me for the future of TESOL is seeing deliberate steps being taken to add more diversity and representation in the educator lineup. I'm Black, I am Jamaican, and I'm a woman. And I've had many situations where I'm the only Black person in the room, or the only woman in the room, or both, or I'm the only person from the English-speaking Caribbean in the room or at TESOL events. So I'm always very excited whenever I go to a very large event and I can see other persons who look like me or who are from areas that I don't see a lot in the classroom, whether it's from English-speaking Asian countries, English-speaking African nations, or from the English-speaking Caribbean. I'm always very excited to see that. And so I would really love to see a lot more of that in the classroom for people. So that's it for me.
Concise and precise. I love it. You can tell Lisa's very into design, structured, concise, excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. Really good, really nice. Who is next? This is probably, no, I can't say that because we're teachers. We're not allowed to have favorites, are we? No, we can't. But if I had to pick a favorite, it would be Rhea because she's the best. Our next speaker is Pyo Shinhye or Sydney Fortowsky. I thought I was going to be great and say, oh, you pronounce your name Fortowsky, correct? And she said, no. She's pretty amazing. If you want to read about her, go ahead. It's on Eventzilla, just like everything else. She is a student and an early career teacher, and she's going to give us her thoughts on what's going to happen in the future. Shine, 시작합니다.
So hi everyone. As you know, my name is Sydney. So I am just about to start my master's in applied linguistics at Korea University here in Seoul. But before I get into my thoughts of the future for ELT, my background is also linguistics. I studied at University of Saskatchewan in Canada. I am Canadian, but before I got into linguistics, I was really into languages as well. When I was a kid, I used to live in the Arctic. I lived in Nunavut, and I was learning Inuktitut as a child without even knowing it. But then we moved, and I was thrust into just completely English environment. Once again, I moved again, and I was put in a French immersion school. I was in French immersion for 6.5 years, and then I was put into an English school because once again I moved. And because my English writing and my English comprehension was not on par with the students of my age, I was put in ESL. And so even though I'm a native English speaker, I was put in ESL with other students. And so that makes me a very special case to some people. And it's all thanks to my teacher, which is also, as like Lisa just said, it makes your learning so much better. If your teacher is very enthusiastic, is very passionate about what they're doing. And my teacher was a family friend as well as my professor, and she was absolutely amazing. We had games, we had cassette tapes, we had tons of things just to stimulate the learning. And it's also thanks to her that I became interested in ESL and wanting to teach others. And so then from there, my journey to become a linguistics student started. I got into Korean, I was into Japanese, I made tons of Chinese friends. And so I just started learning languages just naturally from my friends, as I have tons and tons of international friends. And this helped me with my teaching as well, because I have learned and I studied abroad a lot. I have studied at Helsinki University, where I studied Finnish. I studied in Germany, and I was at a university in Munich. I was at 4 universities in Korea. I've been to Sogang University, Busan National University. I've been to Chungang University. I've just come from Daejeon Daehakyo, and now I'm going to Goryeo for my master's. And I love languages, and this has helped me based off my second language, third, fourth, fifth language learning, that having passion and having experience learning languages makes it so much easier to teach. And you have a better knowledge of how to communicate with your students. And especially if you know that language that they're coming from. So me, as I speak Korean, or learning to speak Korean more so, I'm able to pinpoint things that students are having difficulty with in pronunciation. And that's what I focus on. So I do tongue twisters. I recently just taught at the DJU, Daejeon Daehakyo, for language program for 1 month. And I was to focus on pronunciation and free talking. And through that, I taught my students tongue twisters that I had made up. So for example, the 3 thugs thumped their thunder thighs. Floppy ferrets frolic for fun from fern to fern. And so this, I was able to help the students pinpoint pronunciation, pinpoint their ways to make better pronunciation that they never really focused on before. This is a lot harder online. And so I think that because of COVID, of course, dear COVID, ESL, EFL, TESOL, everything has become a lot harder. It's much more difficult to address issues for our students. I had this when I was teaching at Hongcheon 여자고등학교 in Hongcheon, Gangwon-do. I was a teacher for 1 year, and Hongcheon, and I had the opportunity to teach full-time in class, but then I also had to transition like everyone else
The word
onto
here.
online.
Someone
And
basically someone should show it's like a heads up game and someone else should guess it. And then you just put it either it's right or...
should I keep talking? Yeah, and so when I was doing the online teaching, it was really hard to adjust, just like Professor Judy said, and it was an absolute nightmare. And my students were also saying how they don't like this. It's so much harder to stay focused, and they can't understand me as clearly as they could when I was in front of them. And it was also much, and because of the masks too, yeah. But still, all the time, they're like, we want to be in class, we want to be in class, no matter how comfortable it is being online, and no matter how comfortable internet and technology has made language learning, it's still not the same as being in person and having that communication. So for me, I personally think that EFL is here to stay, although it is going through a slump, but I think it will stay for quite a while just because there are still tons and thousands of people who want to learn languages organically and or in a setting where you're face to face with someone who can teach you. And no matter how convenient a translator that automatically translate what you're hearing is, it's not the same as having that knowledge of that language and that culture that goes along with that language. So I think from my own language learning experience and my own language teaching experience, that EFL and other language teaching is definitely here to stay. So that's my little 2 pence.
고맙습니다. 고맙습니다. What I'm looking at Lisa and I'm thinking of Japanese, which is weird. Never mind. It's getting late, isn't it? You want to go home, don't you? You can't, not yet, because you have to listen to Stafford. Oh no, you say. No, be excited. Stafford is an exciting man. And thank you, Sydney, for that. We could talk about Hong Kong and Canadian politics all day, but we're not going to. Again, with Stafford, if you want to know more about him, go to Eventzilla, please. But I will tell you one fascinating thing about this man is that his handwriting is amazing. Some would even say awesome. Maybe even awesome sauce. Right now, he's down in Australia, and it's pretty late for him. And his wife, Madison, is probably angry at me, not at him, ever. So without further ado, Stafford, please take it away before I stick my foot any further into my mouth.
Thanks, Mike. Actually, we were laughing about this in the break. Madison was also attending a workshop / conference in Korea this evening. So she's in the other room on the computer and I'm in this one. And technically, I think I am already in the future, about 2 hours ahead of you all. Nothing to report. The weather is great. It's 26 degrees. So if you see me start sweating, it's because I've turned the fan off while I Zoom with you. And according to many of my workmates, you in Korea are already living in the future because you have, fans that light up. And despite me bringing it out almost every day during the summer here, people are amazed that these things exist here in Australia. I wanted to just very quickly talk to you about sort of 3 points that I think are going to come up in the near future. And the first one is sort of the immediate future, and it's very specific to Australia and my situation. And that is, we're going to see a return of mobility among students, right? So for Australia, or in the case of Australia, having those international students, whether they're coming to learn English or whether they're coming to learn any of the, any other subject, is actually a vital part of the economy. And what has happened here in Australia is that the government has actually refused to help out universities like they have with other businesses through cash payments and various other stimuli. And so a lot of universities are cutting programs, are merging schools and faculties. And of course, if there are no international students to teach, well, you don't need English teachers much. So there is, I hope there is a future in the very close future that sees a lot of return of those international students into English immersion contexts, especially here in Australia. And although while the government has been pretty crappy, really, in terms of supporting higher education English teachers, they have actually provided a fair amount of professional development opportunities, either through discounted or subsidized postgrad courses. So for me as a TESOL trainer, we've actually seen a lot of primary and secondary school public teachers coming and doing, grad cert TESOL in the evenings because the government's paying for it. And they're actually needed in public schools where there is still a shortage of what we call ELT teachers, English as an additional dialect or language. There you go. Because obviously you got to remember Australia is an ESL environment. It's an assimilation environment for language learners a lot of the time, or English language learners. The second thing that I see sort of in the medium term future is perhaps an increased demand for English learning amongst so-called developing nations, or I really don't like that term. I can't think of a better one at this point. But also, countries in South Asia, countries in Central Asia, not what have been the traditional markets for, native English teachers to come and teach English to. And I think that rather than, drawing on that pool of New Zealanders and Australians and Americans and Canadians, that I think it's those more traditional markets like Korea and Japan who are very much poised to take advantage of this new demand. If you look at Korea, there are at least 2 generations of non-native English-speaking teachers that have been trained and have learned English from native speakers. And it's those teachers that are going to be able to take advantage of this demand in places like Kazakhstan or South Asia, Central Asia, to teach online, teach language online. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't name a specific technology that I think is going to help us all improve going into the future. It's probably not one you're thinking of. It is Bitcoin. Go buy Bitcoin. I know this guy. No. What I'm going to suggest is that it's not Bitcoin itself, but the technology of the Bitcoin ledger that allows us to store and transfer information quickly, at speed, securely, and transparently. That is going to be really important when we start dealing with micro-credentials. Okay, the trend, at least in sort of this part of the world, Oceania, New Zealand, Australia, is for higher ed to start delivering more micro-credentials, these tiny bite-sized 4-week courses, often shorter than a MOOC, but possibly online, possibly face-to-face. And if you collect enough of these micro-credentials, eventually you'll get a degree. Now, that doesn't necessarily enthuse some of our traditionalists, but it does allow us to provide learning to our students, at their pace, wherever they are. So in order to keep all of that information, because learning is valuable, but not as valuable to the government, who instead wants metrics and numbers and all of that sort of stuff, we're going to need to keep track of all of these little bits of information. And if you know anything about Bitcoin, you can buy a whole Bitcoin if you've got 60,000 Australian dollars, or you can buy a little tiny bit of a Bitcoin for $1. And that's my sort of my micro credential analog there. It's, little bits of information building up towards a bigger peace of mind. So finally, I think the long-term kind of discussion of, what does an English teacher look like in the future? And I really think that as English teachers and as English teacher trainers, we need to become more T-shaped. T-shaped. Shaped like a T, so that we have a broad understanding of our discipline, our field. We're able to, slot in and pick up some extra shifts at the Hogwan. We could, be a bit mobile and go from school to school because, we've got a good understanding of our field. But we also have a really deep and thorough understanding of one or two specific domains within that field. So, for example, mine would be, more along the lines of understanding online pedagogies, right? So what are the pedagogies for, delivering stuff over a camera as opposed to in a face-to-face situation? How do we, use our teachers' eyes in the back of our head when all of our students are in breakout rooms and we can't see what they're doing? How do we remind people how to spell jinkies in the chat without sounding too aggressive or teacherly, perhaps? Online, right? So having a good understanding of these sort of evolving pedagogies that are still based on our fundamental, what we originally did, once upon a time as English teachers. There is a lot that is transferable from the face-to-face class to the online classroom. And if you start thinking about that and your LMS as an extension of your classroom, then things become really interesting and you can do some amazing things. So that's what I think. I want more students where I am right now. We need to get those non-native English-speaking teachers up and out there teaching English because they're well equipped and they know what they're doing. We should all buy Bitcoin. I mean, we should all use the ledger for storing our qualifications, and our T-shaped instructors with broad understandings of the fundamental pedagogies, but specific and niche understandings of, sort of well-paid areas, in addition to our usual kind of teaching. I'll pass it back to Mike and say, I miss you guys. It's coming up on 3 years since I left Korea. And one day when Australia lets me leave the country again, after I get my shot in a couple of weeks' time, I think, I will definitely come and see you all. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much, Stafford. Yeah, micro-credentialing, I already hate that so much. I just hate it. And I'm not buying any Bitcoin. Don't buy anything from Stafford, really. Just don't do it. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our speakers, to Professor Endicott, Professor Yin, Professor Hunsberger, not quite yet, Professor Fortowsky, but pretty soon. I think she might just take over the world. And of course, Stafford. And thank you to all of you for coming